tell me your name, where you were born, the year, and who your parents were, if you don't mind.
Oh, family history. No, I was originally Amy Porter, and I come from the Willamette Valley, where my father's people took land claim, his mother and father, and they accumulated a lot of the property down in the Willamette Valley. And when I was 11, we moved to Portland. Sister was a professional musician and studying at that time, and so they came up here, and we all lived up here. So I graduated from high school from Grant early on, and it was a little school and delightful. All of us knew each other. We still get together a lot. And then at the University of Oregon.
Okay, why don't we
Start from...
Well, you could start with your mother's family.
Oh. Is it on? Oh, okay. I forgot to mention that my mother's background was from, originally, they were from Upper New York State, and my grandfather was a graduate in law from the university, I believe it was at Albany at that time, or in New York, I'm not sure which. We have books of his co-students in that university, which were kind of fun. My grandmother came from Upper New York State in a big dairy farm, and they married and ended in Minnesota, where my mother was born, and then came west when she was a young teenager. And my mother and father met at the University of Oregon, where he graduated, and she, after 2 years, got married, and then went to the ranch, which the home ranch was at Shed, Oregon, and his father had died while he was at the university, and as the eldest son, he was expected to run the ranch, although he had expected to be a math teacher. They were there for several years, and then took one of the other properties that the Porters had, which was west of Shed, and that was a 600 acre. The other was a 1,400 acre. And I was born at the place out of Halsey. But at 4 years, my mother and father decided schooling wasn't the greatest, and my sister was tired of being sent to Eugene for school, so they built a home in the little town of Halsey. And so at 4, I only went back to the big farm in the summertime, but I loved it very much. It was a very beautiful home of the 19th century, which burned, and that broke my heart. I thought that was the end of the world had come when that burned. And then at 11, as I said, we came up to Portland.
Okay, and then went to Grant High School, then you went to the University of Oregon, and you graduated
in 31.
That's right.
I only took the 4 years, and the Depression was on us. So I graduated in 31 and was married the next fall when we came to Portland to run an apartment house that my father had purchased and didn't really run and was wondering what the heck to do with it after he'd gotten it. So we got married and ran the apartment. Otherwise we wouldn't have, because my husband had graduated in geology and was working for Chicago Pneumatic Tool Company. And when the Depression hit, he was through in 29 or 30. Schwab from New York gave notice that all the unmarried salesmen should be fired, which I thought was a human thing to do. But Lee then ran a furniture factory for a while and this and that, and so we were both at loose ends. So we ran an apartment house, and then there was no architecture. You'd have to pay somebody to work in an office then, because no one had any work to speak of, and everybody struggled.
Yeah, I think you said previously when we talked that people actually did pay to work in people's offices.
I don't know. That used to be the joke around, that you had to pay. I don't know anyone that survived that. Of course, Keith McGuire was at school, and he was one of our Portland architects. And there were several of them. just ran across the fact that Elmer Zeller, who was one in there, has an office over on Sandy. I had to drop in and see him.
Yeah.
It was a small department, quite different than your department now, in the old art building. And I don't think I ever had any real talent. I certainly had no reason from any background to go into architecture.
Yeah. What was it that got you into it?
Well, it was one of these. I think it was one of the students. It could have been, but I think it was one of the upperclassmen that came and talked to the Grant High School students. And I'd always loved buildings and homes and otherwise. And some way he just struck a note that that's what I wanted to do. And so my mother suggested talking to Dean Morris, and he didn't see any reason for a woman to be doing that either. And that didn't make any difference to me particularly. So I went ahead and registered in architecture.
Yeah, did you think you would ever work in architecture when you thought about going to school in architecture? Did you see it as just, well, I'll go to school in it and then not work in it afterwards, or did you see it as a real thing to
in
do?
those years, there was so little talk of women in professions.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I approached it from the standpoint of just playing with it. I couldn't have, because it was all very new to me. I had taken no drafting. I was not an artist, so that I had to work very, very hard. And as I say, it was a small school, and we all helped each other a great deal. Math was no problem for me, so I remember helping one of the upperclassmen in that respect, and then he'd help me in design, and we worked out. Clothiel and I, with Clothiel Woodard Smith, we were in the same sorority and very close friends, and she was on the other end of the scale, always a very talented and exceptional ability, but we made it all right together. I appreciated her work, and she appreciated the fact that I had to work hard. And we got along just fine. But we studied together a good deal. I like the story that I told you the other day about Professor Adams.
Why don't you tell me again? Just
In
for the record.
the graphics of where Clothiel and I wanted to study together, and we sat in the front seat. All the rest of them were men, of course, boys, but there were men really, because at that time students who probably had been working in office and couldn't, and then came back to get a degree is the way I think of it, because there were a number of them were quite a bit older. Mm-hmm. That is, few years makes a lot of difference in that, at that time.
Yeah.
The difference between 18 and 21 or 10 years instead of... but anyway, I can remember one exam that we worked together on, and Professor Adams sat and rocked back and forth in his chair and grinned and nodded his head and thought that was just fine. But it was a great experience. We had more freedom in that department than the other departments. We had our own little library where I couldn't study in the big library because people hushed and tiptoed. In ours, if you wanted to say anything, you just said it, you know. And, so the whole atmosphere was, when we did stay later in our department, and during final weeks, as they left, it was open till, it must have been after 12, because I can remember getting home way after 1 o'clock, 2 or 3 in the morning, because we were always behind in getting our work out.
Well, of course.
That
Things
never,
don't change.
That never changed.
Yeah. So were you the only 2 women in the program while you were there?
There was another very interesting woman who married Hudson Harlow, who was a very fine, talented young architect student, and she was actually more interested in engineering. And her name was Catherine Chisness, K-J-O-S-N-E-S-S. Anyway, she was a very, very brilliant mind, but more than that still. And of course, then the parts were small. The interior decorators, the freshmen, as I remember, the freshman architects were down the lower level, and a few steps up. We were sophomore, junior, and senior. Engineering was clear at the back, and the interior decorators used that lower level. There was at least one man in the interior decorating department, I remember. So there were other women around in that, but during the final, Kofi and I probably be the only ones up there at the night for it.
Yeah.
I think one of the highlights of our 4 years was the visit of Frank Wagner, who had been a very good friend of Wilcox in Chicago. And so he came out to give his lecture, which was very interesting and very funny. He was he made people sound extremely ridiculous, if you wish. But he was good to the students. He'd come around and visit and found that we weren't going to the banquet, so canceled the banquet himself by just saying he wouldn't go. And instead I must have been my junior or senior year, and we went downtown to one of the restaurants in the back room, and about a dozen or so of us, I guess. And he and his lovely wife had a wonderful evening and night.
Yeah.
But his the critique, I suppose, speaks of the times, because they asked him if he would give one of the drawings around that were up at that time, and he, of course, said he would. He was very fond of our school because it was not a Beaux-Arts. University of Washington and Harvard, I think, were the only two. I'm sorry. University of Washington was a Beaux-Arts school. The University of Oregon and Harvard, I think, were the only schools that were not. And he thought that was a ridiculous system because everybody was graded against the other person, And Wilcox hated grades, period. So we didn't have any of that. We were graded on our, I don't know what, ability or
your own progress,
but our own yes, our own progress probably would be the best way. His critique of mine was he would have done all right if he hadn't seen English architecture. Because the elevation was probably looked too English to him. But he was a very remarkable man, and did a great deal to move our architectural world into further thinking and exploratory.
Yeah. Did you hear much about what was going on in this field of architecture worldwide while you were in school? Or
in the library was where it was kind of a thing with me anyway, to take a day off every month to go in and read the current magazines and see what was going on.
Yeah, how luxurious. Take a day off.
Well, it probably was only an hour or so, but at least we tried. I remember coming up to Portland to see new buildings. I don't know why I remember, but the green home over by Laurelhurst was built at that time. It's
you mean like Green and Green?
The name Green.
Oh, okay.
The people, It was a home there, but I don't remember what else was new at that time. But we did make a trip up to look at them, so we were aware of what was going on somewhat.
Yeah, one of the women in our committee put together a historical list of world history, women's history, and architectural history things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just looking through it and wondering about what sort of things you might have come across in terms of, what, you were in school 28, 29, 30?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you heard about Mies van der Rohe at that time or whether you heard about him later. I'm just curious about where, how quickly things moved.
No. I don't remember, and I may have read about him. It's been a long time, and I actually don't remember whether I
read about him
his band or I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah, because he and Corbu and all those other people that were real big in Europe were just beginning to be big, but they hadn't left yet because of Hitler. All the 30s war stuff didn't start happening, and nobody actually came over until the 30s, I guess.
I doubt we thought of him as a person, as I say to quickly go through an architecture magazine,
you see the image.
You're more interested in what is happening as far as building, and at that time aren't concentrating on the who.
I know, I never remember names personally, but I'm wondering if you did.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Sorry. Well, that's interesting. Margaret Mead was Marty's sister.
Really?
Oh, yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and then she had this was the 30s, 1929 to 1941. Yeah.
Oh.
Like, was there a lot of publicity when Falling Water was created, or
yes,
were you out of the circle by then?
No. I was, but I was interested.
Okay.
And so it was an exciting
era. Yeah. Well, that's great.
Actually, Frank Lloyd Wright brought a lot of his models with him when he came, or I say a number of them.
Right.
I remember one is the apartment that turned. The whole structure, it was copied somewhat over in Vancouver, but I think they gave up turning so that people would have different vistas and different exposures, and that was one of them. And of course, he was that. What did he build? Did he just build or go to the hotel in Japan? The brush construct, because I can see him saying it.
Doing what? What was he doing?
Brush. That
rubbing the brush,
like a brush into the ground, and he said so that when the earthquake came, it would
like a scrub brush.
Like a scrub brush.
Interesting.
That was his explanation, and I can't remember whether it was the process of thinking, because I've forgotten.
Let's see.
When it was built, actually.
I don't have any idea. It must have been
probably
right around then. 1931, 32.
I always remember it. he was extremely vocal and wonderful words.
Yeah, well, it's images like that you keep forever but can't explain to anybody.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't do anything. Of course, nobody did anything then. All we did was try to survive. And I hear people saying they can't have all the electrical equipment in the world. I think you don't know anything about saving in order to go to a show. But we were all in the same boat. Most of us that had gone to school. And then finally people began to get jobs. And then we played because we had been held down so long. Then we got the money. We had a party.
I understand that. Yeah.
And I think that was good. But I didn't. I was too busy from running an apartment to having children to.
Yeah. When did you start having children?
Well, my first one was 35, so we were still in the apartment. Moved to Salem. My husband was working for Fuller's then and was a salesman down the valley. And we lived there for a year, which was enough, and fortunately had returned to Portland and rented, and finally, because I had been brought up that it was practically heathenish not to own your own home, I started fussing, and we bought this lot for $500.
Oh, wonderful.
50 by 150. And I must tell you, I drew up the plans for the house, and it followed the contour. It was all just wonderful. And the first bid was out of the question, and my husband, whose family had no homes, threw up his hands in horror and had 3 fits, and I picked up the plans and put them in the garbage. And cried, probably. And then picked up my pencil and went, woof, 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 here's the house. Put it on the lot. And then started pushing walls out.
Yeah.
Afterwards. But it had a big living room that was divided with a screen and 2 bedrooms down here that our 2 little kids had to share until we could get a bedroom upstairs finished.
So what year did you build the house?
in the Pearl. We dug the year Pearl Harbor, the day after Pearl Harbor. Practically.
Oh yeah.
Which was a fun time to build because you hid the furnace in the garage, somebody's garage, and that sort of thing to buy because everything was not available.
Oh.
So we just ran around and grabbed something quick and stuck it in the garage so you could use it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. And you couldn't get workmen because they were on the shipyards.
I bet.
And I ended up doing painting inside because by the time I had one or two winos around, I said, forget it. Mm-hmm. And but it was when men started coming back, and my husband was closing out the Food Administration, where they checked prices up and down the coast. And he kind of closed out the office here, and then I don't know why they came up there, but they did. One or two of the fellows. And he said to come out. At that time, I was pregnant with my third, and so I started drawing up homeschooling. And having never worked in an office, didn't know a darn thing about the building code. I had to go down and beat my head against the wall to learn that and all those things that you could and couldn't do.
Right. Well, we're all still doing that.
But that's nothing new.
Yeah.
And then it worked in that of course, right off, there were hills on the hillside where you had to worry about all of that construction, which was interesting. They were either going up the hill or down the hill.
Yeah.
And then I did quite a bit of remodeling, which I think is fascinating and a real challenge and appreciated so much by your clientele or your customer, whichever you wish to call it. Not that the news houses aren't, but people, and I know the frustration of a little house and then having somebody say, oh boy, you can push it out here and
there.
So it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. So how many years did that span from when you started doing that until are you still doing this, or have you quit entirely?
Oh, I just got back from Seattle where my granddaughter and her husband bought an old. It's a 19. I think they said 6, but it looks more like 12, 13 to me. But anyway, it's a little cottage up on the hill, Queen Anne Hill, and they want to raise the roof. In fact, the previous owner had put in the modern 8-foot ceiling, and they were so unhappy, and they got the bid that they made because they said we're going to tear that ceiling out. And the young man who'd been brought up in the home was so excited because that was the way he remembered it, and he let him have it at
the low price.
Anyway, my granddaughter said, "Grandma, come up here and help quicker." So I just went and we just talked about it.
Well, yeah, that was sounds about right.
That's the best thing. No, the last house I did was for the minister of our church, Dr. Walker. I suppose that was in the 50s. I've been, I did the remodeling or did the sketch up of the Congregational Church when they dug out the basement to put in the end, and then the people from Great Falls, the Congregational Church, came to see our church and asked me if I'd come up there and enthuse them a little bit, so I made a little sketch that was turned over to the architect up there, but it was fun.
That's nice. Yeah, I was talking to my accountant this morning, and she was asking me about my retirement accounts, and I said, well, I didn't think I really got a chance to retire in this business.
Oh, no.
That you just kind of keep going.
Well, you're always interested.
Yeah.
You're always interested, and we spent Saturday afternoon, and my granddaughter's interested in shopping, and her husband and I were looking at buildings because he's interested in the new buildings, and I hadn't been there for 10 years, so I was interested too, and we kind of shared time between shopping and running around inside buildings that were just good. It's always an interest. It's great. It's if you don't. I've always said if I hadn't worked in it, I was still glad to the introduction because I think opens your eyes to more talents, and you, having had a sister in the music world, that was open already, but the architecture opens up so many more areas of interest.
Yeah.
It'll keep you young. Stay with it.
No problem. I've got too much invested to get out. But let's see. I guess one thing we need to talk about is, you said you've done a lot of remodeling and a few new homes. Are there specific places we could take photos of?
You know, I never went back to take photos of them.
Well, do you have the addresses? Can we go?
I think I did this right across the street, but
Really?
I think Phil has redone it again because he did what I wanted to do. They didn't want to include as much as I did at that time, as I wanted them to. And so he and Phil Marcus, he's an architect here in Toronto.
Okay.
And the one through the block I did, a bunch out on the west side. And, I never went back to look at it, really. The one on the 12th that I did the whole house, remember the whole darn thing was an old house right on the 12th River. It was one of the jobs I was more excited about than any of them. But unfortunately, the river expanded and it had to go eventually, and then they widened the area there. But no, I've never. I guess I do. I don't know whether I have a boot. I can't remember whether I threw them all away or not. I guess I do have a box up in the attic. Probably. Well, I was more interested in the doing of them. And usually I saw them so back because they'd always become my friends too. You know. Yeah. And they take pictures of them with just something I was too busy to, with the next job, or to think about.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I just, in my family, and I was doing a lot of other things, and it was, if they were happy, well, I was happy. And the one at 12 was so funny because the man that had done remodeling for other work and was very good became ill. And his son had to take over, who had done nothing but new buildings and was a perfectionist.
Uh-oh. That's
Every
hard.
morning I knew that the phone would ring. He'd say, Mrs. Rapp, this measures so many inches on this end and so many inches on the other end. What do I do? I said, you take the medium. That's what I did. Because I said, you go back to any of your new houses and you will find an inch or so off and 1 or 2 or 3 walls. So just don't worry about it. Then often during he had called, and then I'd have to get in the car and go out. But I didn't oversee Joe. But he was so frustrated.
Yeah.
That and it really was the epitome of one end of the room different than the other, because it was an old house.
Yeah.
That had been pieced together.
Oh, yeah.
But it was such a great location and had so many possibilities that it was lots of fun. Lots of fun. I do remember the thing in the basement room, which was great because we could do it. Was the round open fire that we worked out so that we could cover it as a big table if we wanted to, or open it up, and it had a copper hood that would pull up, you know.
Really? Could raise down?
And we
raise down. That
kind
doesn't make
of
sense.
collapse about, you know. And years afterwards, I saw this wonderful thing that somebody had invented that was already done.
Ah, well, good for you. And you don't have any pictures of this thing, do you? Oh, no.
No, in those years we didn't.
Well, yeah, it wasn't such a big thing.
Pictures like I do now.
Oh,
I
yeah.
take pictures of things, you know. Sit for a week in front of someplace in Europe. And it seemed like it was all afternoon practically to get things just right so I could get a picture of the building. But in those years, I didn't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the fact that you worked didn't mean that you didn't take care of the kids in the garden and the house and everything.
Right. I know.
Still is, huh?
Still is, as far as I can tell. Yeah. So did you, you had your office in your home, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you just worked while the kids were at school?
Uh-huh. When Joe was about 4, that was the youngest one I'd been doing. I heard the front door open, and there was this tippy-toes little feet coming in, and I heard him say, Mom was architecting. And I thought, that's it. So I just burned midnight oil after that, until he was in school.
Yeah.
Because that isn't fair.
Yeah, I know. It is hard just to give everybody the time they deserve.
Yeah, well, you can't disrupt and have a child tiptoeing around the house because you happen to be
right
wanting them to.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah, I find it hard to stay up late though. It's just.
Well, that's my most creative time is late night.
Yeah.
For thinking out problems and things. Last night it was because I was trying to figure out how to report the fact that the tower of the Congregational Church, they're working on the secondary structure, and then came up suddenly that the primary structure is in trouble, and whoops.
Well, yeah. Can't compare yourself to everybody.
Well, I'm happy with what I've what I've done, what I've been interested in. I served on the Performing Arts Committee as a representative of the church, and that was extremely interesting. That's when I found that I was strange, that I was in architecture in those years.
Oh,
because
okay.
the Eastern schools didn't accept them.
Yeah,
women.
I know.
And if they did, they still made it very difficult for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, how was it when you went to school?
That's interesting, yeah, because I guess for a long time Oregon had its own, just the Pacific Northwest was so far removed from everywhere else that they kind of just went along and did whatever it was they did and didn't really give a hoot about anybody else.
Well, of course, I just think Wilcox isn't given enough.
And what was his full name?
W.R.B. Wilcox.
Oh, he was the dean of the
Mr.
school?
Wilcox. He was the dean? No, Lawrence was the dean.
Okay.
Wilcox was head of architecture.
Okay. And so he was there mid-20s to mid-30s, or? Not that long?
He was on, let's see. I don't know when he started, actually. It's all documented down there, but I see, 31, he was there for... I couldn't tell you. But he was just a spade with a spade, like he said about Clofield Woodard Smith. One time we were visiting away, and he said, I made some comment about something she'd done with Sylvia. I thought, oh, that's just wonderful. And he said, yeah, Clofield will either go to the top or she won't go at all. And he's right.
Yeah, and she did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's no halfway.
Yeah.
No halfway. Mm-hmm. No, she's a poor little shriveled up lady.
Well, I suppose that happens eventually.
Yeah, her husband died, she just went.
Yeah, a couple years ago, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, a lot of us would like to see a lot more because as far as the architecture was concerned, he made that department at that time. Not Dean Lawrence. Dean Lawrence would come down. He didn't even live in Eugene. He would come down on the train on Monday and give the architectural history course on Tuesday and come back on Tuesday night. And that was the dean of the school.
That's a real close tie there.
He probably politically did the job, you understand?
Right. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Get all the money.
But our architectural history, which now they get at least 3 hours, I believe, for, we got 1 hour, and it was the hardest course of any of them. It wasn't anything for people to spend 3 and 4 hours on an exam.
Yeah. Yeah, when I went through the first year, 2 years of college where I would normally have gotten architectural history. It was right after the revolutions of 1969 and 1970, so we had no history. It wasn't relevant, we didn't need to learn it, so we didn't have any. So I'm still fairly dumb about architectural history in some respects, but it was an interesting period because I went to Europe for 3 months and learned my architectural history that way, but I don't know the parts of Greek architecture or the parts of Roman architecture or anything.
Isn't that interesting? Well, I don't know. He crammed it so hard that it's kind of like a block of it, almost, it would have been, if they'd given you 3 hours, you could that much of your time. But to try to get a 1 hour course in a 3 hour expectation that he had.
Right.
It was too much.
Yeah.
It was, you learned it just for the exam. Because he wanted you to take sketches and write notes during the exam, and it was nothing for him to ask an exam to take Notre Dame, tell when it was built, how long it took, the social, economic, and religious conditions of the time, make a sketch of some part of it, and that would be one question.
Right, and then there'd be 10 other questions. Right?
Yeah, it was.
Well, I still think college was probably harder back then than it is now. I don't know why, but it just had this image that it must have been more rigorous. Maybe not, but
I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I think they had more practical courses in a way. We didn't have any lectures, you see. Wilcox didn't believe in all that. So, except for that lecture and the graphics, he had no lecture for architectural design. He just gave you a sheet and said, do it before the end of the term.
Right.
And I suppose maybe they still do it that way, although it seemed to me that Gilm, isn't that silly? Well, the head of the Architecture University.
I have no idea what it is.
Well, he's a delightful man. Just a delightful man. He was on the Performing Arts Committee too, so that's how it happened that people knew I went there. You see.
I see. Interesting.
So when I would be Exhibit Z, because of someone my age who would have gone to an architecture school, couldn't fathom it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Now you went to
University of Cincinnati. So I really don't know much about the school here at all.
No. Well, it's been a because of the background, of the different way that it was taught, the freedom in the school, which was way, way ahead of its time. Way ahead. Yeah. It was small, so we helped each other.
How many people were in your class?
There was only just a few in the fifth year. A handful.
Really?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
I'm appalled when I go back now because they just remodeled all that. The interesting, see, they just remodeled the whole architecture and added on a whole big area there. Eugene's a lovely campus.
Yeah, I've been to Eugene. I just haven't been there because of architecture.
Well, you ought to go over there.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd enjoy it. But the old buildings there, see, when my father and mother went, there were just 2 buildings for large Didi. Just 2. My father was one of 7 in the city class, all men. And about 4 or 5 of them were very, he had a very beautiful voice. One of them became head of the music at University of Washington. One of them was an alcoholic who had a lovely voice, but they would walk him around the streets of Eugene to sober him up and sing. But anyway, the school started.
Yeah. Guess they'll start that way somewhere.
Yeah, we'll start that way. Well, I'm sorry. I had done some things, but I had not kept records, and it was just too. I could, I suppose, look them up, but I don't know that they're important enough because they were so long ago.
Yeah.
That they would have any particular bearing. It was a time of change of kitchens, you know.
Oh yeah, updating and modernizing, right?
That was the thing I was telling my granddaughter. I said, they were trying to find in magazines, and I said, oh, for heaven's sake, get a file. I was telling them about my huge file on build-ins and anything new and hardware and all of this, you know, for in the remodeling game of kitchens and bathrooms.
Oh yeah, well, there's so much new stuff.
And it wasn't, I just, Ellie won't do anything else but
right.
Those two. But I pushed out dormers and all. I just put a big dormer on our house here not too many years ago.
Interesting.
Well, I put it on the entry. That was just a little porch.
Huh.
A little brick porch.
Mm-hmm.
And the front door was where the in the middle of that door, those two doors, and we closed it, put a scout on it. I hadn't had it long till I had a porch out here at the kitchen and took in the porch.
Yeah, porches are funny things. They keep disappearing. I'm a big porch fan personally.
Well, I love them. You know, it's this is the whole thing out here is covered with an awning in the summer.
Yeah.
But then if you need space, why you enclose the porch. But yeah, there in Seattle, they have on Queen Anne, they have wonderful views, so they're pulling it up and then they're extending it with a porch on each end because then they can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like porches too, so that's the way I started. But they just got used up.
I think that's sort of what happens to them most of the time. They just kind of get, well, if we can use it for an outdoor space, we could use it for an indoor space.
Yeah, in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Because often you want to get clear out because our summers have been long.
Yeah, although I would think that people with children would want porches just to have a place for them to play when it's raining.
Yeah, I know. Christmas even, they play on the porch. Oh, yeah. So it was fine when they were raining. And they came through the basement a lot. So that was mudroom. A lot of things they've added to houses are wonderful. Oh, Cindy, did I tell you I went through 7 of the old Victorian homes in San Francisco when we were there?
No.
My son has a Victorian home up above Haight Street up in Memphis, and he belongs to this, he calls it, what's he called? The poor class Victorian home owners or the working. Anyway, there's a kind of a group of them that just have old paper, very informal sort of thing. But they had about 7 homes left. And we went through them. It was wonderful to see what they'd done.
Yeah.
One of them had a level here and a level here originally.
Yeah.
Then they had this attic, which they were artists, and they opened this attic up with all of the dormer into open rooms. So that was modern up top there.
Right.
Then they had redone the bottom as it was.
Yeah. I wonder if that was part of the historic homes having to be opened up for public viewing every year or something.
Oh, I don't know. These were just people that were in this organizations, and they do it, I think, every year. But maybe that is part of the thing. I don't know how many of them are historic. Some of them couldn't be because they were been turned into apartments. See, it's right down. These are ones that are old ones right down now. And I imagine some of them couldn't be. They'd have to do them all. Although I couldn't think about it, the outside's pretty pure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the definitions are for the historic registry.
Well, the outside has to be the original.
Mm.
It's like our church.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do anything to the outside to change that. We can.
Does that include not cutting the ivy?
No, the ivy wasn't there originally. How did you hear about the ivy?
Well, I've seen the ivy. I just always wondered why it was allowed to be so big.
Bless you, because I'm in the midst of being hit on the head because people love the ivy, and it's got to go.
It's wonderful looking, but I know ivy. Ivy's not a good thing.
It's if you go by that building close and look closely, it is one of the few in Oregon that is beautiful. It's pointing.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's, you take a hold of this and out comes. So we're cutting it and letting it kind of
dive before you pull it off. Yeah.
And there's a lot of change.
Oh, I bet.
So we're getting out all the old pictures, to show it was not on there originally.
Right. Sometimes plants grow later. That's interesting. I guess it's one of those things where you have to be really careful when you cut it. You can't cut a flowering cherry when it's flowering or people object, but if you cut it in midwinter, nobody cares.
Well, that's what we're waiting for. All these to come off, and then it's just not going to come back next year.
Yeah.
The man from CH2 Hill, that is a historical architect, is making a report, and we're going to have there today, and I'm going to wring his neck, on our church to see what damage, if any, was done by the building of the Performing Arts.
Right.
And he just pets the church. He listens to some, and he was talking about it. And when they had a grant of the one of the few in Oregon that is beautiful. It's pointing.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's, you take a hold of this and out comes. So we're cutting it and letting it kind of
dive before you pull it off. Yeah.
And there's a lot of change.
Oh, I bet.
So we're getting out all the old pictures, to show it was not on there originally.
Right. Sometimes plants grow later. That's interesting. I guess it's one of those things where you have to be really careful when you cut it. You can't cut a flowering cherry when it's flowering or people object, but if you cut it in midwinter, nobody cares.
Well, that's what we're waiting for. All these to come off, and then it's just not going to come back next year.
Yeah.
The man from CH2 Hill, that is a historical architect, is making a report, and we're going to have there today, and I'm going to wring his neck, on our church to see what damage, if any, was done by the building of the Performing Arts.
Right.
And he just pets the church. He listens to some, and he was talking about it. And when they had a grant that started taking care of the tower, a government grant, matching, not very big, and for a study. And they say it must come. So we're going to start quotes in the little pilgrim to get people prepared for the fair. That was from that building. It was fun when we remodeled that because the basement was not full, you see.
Oh.
So it's about 30 inches, I guess, that we had to dig down. 2 feet. And that had to be hand excavated.
Always an interesting prospect of how to get
One of the
dirt
fast ones they ever did. They said that, well, they were all excited because everybody was wanting.
If anybody can do that.
Well, the company, of course. But I'd go down there and they'd say, "Oh, we're going to make it. This is going to be. We're going to do this faster than I've ever had it done before."
I had a friend who had to excavate a basement from a crawl space, and ended up taking the dirt out on little red wagons. Got all the neighborhood wagons. And just, would shovel as much as he could and then pull it out. Sounded like a fun job.
Well, they had a little belt that connected out to Medicine Street, but it still was there. But the old furnace was down there, and it's fun to go down because it has I fought them down, and I say I did, single-handedly. And my architect friends even didn't support me. And one of them, they called the next morning, he came in, and they said, "You win. You'll be exposing the rock on the inside because it's old, old masonry where it sheds, and then the brickwork shows down there of the arch supports." And so if you're up around there, you go downstairs and see there. It's been remodeled since we did a cheap job when we remodeled it. But it's fun to see the underpinnings, I think.
Oh yeah, we were at Monticello this summer, and underpinnings galore there.
Oh,
It was wonderful to just go down and look through I guess it's stables and things that are under there. It was real nice.
I was up in Salisbury. They had the scaffolding up because they were working on the tower, and they were taking people up. So I got up over the nave and up all around in there. Oh, it was just wonderful. Yeah, it was great. Well, my dear,
I need to get going.
you have things because you've got your kids coming home.
Well, actually, I was thinking I would just walk over and pick them up. See how it's down the hill a little bit.
And they're what grades now?
Some people, and the problem was that I came from Chicago. I just came out from the graduate school. The way I was introduced in the office, she has done this and she has done that. When I graduated from the graduate school, I had a special attention in Chicago because they always, at the museum, they always give one presentation on the graduate student. I was the one chosen. Oh. And then they mentioned everything what I have achieved in Chicago. And I was introduced around the office. You know.
Name, address, phone
Yeah.
number.
We need that kind of list.
Yeah.
Next day,
Is that
whom
in your
are you?
file?
What?
Is that in your file?
No,
That's
I don't have anything. I just, that's my memory. In 1959, when I came from Chicago here,
Yeah.
I was 3 months with SOM. Then they let some people go. There were, I think, 4 of us. But they didn't have to let me go,
Right.
just because. The Hilton Hotel was bid. Wasn't bid, was bid next year, I think. But then they lost some projects, and they had really the possibility to let some people go. Then I went to K&K, and it was a nice place. But after a year, from 30-some people in the office, there were only 16 left. Because when they were done with...
Nothing changes.
At Christmas time, they said, "Oh, we have such good group here. We like all of our people, and the business is so good." Came next August.
Yeah. I remember that.
But that's the only place where I haven't seen that was the Federal Government.
That's yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That. You want me to repeat that?
No.
Oh, okay. It said that there were cycles where women found openings and they would go through and do okay, and they would get encouragement and things would work out. They'd pass exams, get licenses, and so forth and so on. And then there'd be a trough where it was like a backlash, and it'd be like maybe 10 years of good times, and then maybe 10 of bad, and then back to the good, and then back to the bad, and that they had charted at least 3 or 4 of these loops, and that your timing was what your experience was going to be. If you came through at a good time, you'd make it, and if you came through at a bad time, why?
Spent 10 years getting licensed.
You'd spend 10 years getting licensed, and that they didn't. It wasn't all way back when. It was a continuing cycle, and that maybe the late 30s, early 40s were a good time. Late 40s, early 50s, a bad time.
Mm-hmm. Therefore, we must make sure that it doesn't happen in the 90s.
Yeah.
Or that it happened already during the 80s, and the 90s are going to be
still,
fine.
well, no, it's
we don't
I
know.
think
It happened in the 80s?
I don't know. I think it's starting to happen in the 80s, and I think I see signs of bad stuff in the 90s. That's what worries me. I see right now a downhill.
You do.
And that worries me.
In the
Is that
early
right?
60s, when I was taking state board for the first time, I tell you my experience.
When was that, Liz?
Early 60s, I don't know, 63, 64. And a prominent architect did prepare the structural. And since I was working for SOM for 4 years on the structural, I felt quite safe and secure. And I finished it fast and just handed in. I got, I think, something 50, some points on the structural. Of course, I inquired. And I went back and met this man with the test. And we went one by one. I think he didn't do the checking himself. Somebody did after his notes. And I got 5 points more there, 10 points more here, 20 points more there. I came up into 90s.
Wow.
What he said, if you are that good, you can come back again. That was the end. That he is still around.
Well, he died eventually.
Yeah.
I got a story.
And I had to go back.
There's a lot of these stories, and these stories are worth collecting. The really awful ones, the really funny ones, and maybe a couple good ones.
You are that good, you can come back.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So what's your other story?
Well, this has to do with school. I remember I was the only woman in my class.
Right.
And I was a structural major. That was something they started in the 50s. And I went into this class first day, and we had this engineer professor from Cooper Union, and he was good. He was really good. He had the class in one of those rooms where the seats go up as you go back, but the door is at the front. So I sneaked in and I sat down in the front seat. And probably everybody else was there. At any rate, here I was up in the front seat all alone. And he draws his force diagram on the blackboard, and he has certain reactions up and certain loads down and so on. And then he has one reaction that isn't identified. He gave values to all the other forces, and he said, I want you to tell me whether you think this force should be acting up or down. And he said, those who think it should be acting up, raise their hands. I raised my hand. Those who think it should be acting down, raise their hands. And I could tell he had this funny look on his face. It's absolutely incredible. He said, let's do that again. He said, how many of you think this force should be acting? He went through the whole problem. I put my hand there. How many think it should be acting down? And he said, well, I tell you, this is a first. He says, it's the first time in my life I've ever seen one woman right and 18 men wrong. Oh my goodness, what a girl. You know, I was in front. And
So
they knew I had to be wrong, so they knew.
Right.
That's great.
It's funny. They can raise their hand.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You are wrong. Okay.
You mean they couldn't think for themselves? And then the second funniest story is that in my final year, we had a course called Indeterminate Structures. You have to have calculus in order to take this, but the professor who taught this course had never had calculus. It was such a joke. He gave us a problem at the beginning of the year, which was, as it turned out, our final problem. We worked all year on that problem and never did solve it. We all got a B for the course. Yeah. Oh, they got rid of this young man from Cooper Union.
Huh.
Whether these 18 guys had anything to do with that.
Does somebody know Steve Tang at the University of Oregon? Steve Tang?
I know who he is. I missed out on having him for a teacher, but he was there. He was teaching when I was there.
Who was it?
Steve Tang, T-A-N-G.
I suspect that he is my supervisor from SOM from Chicago.
Oh, really?
I think. He was Chinese.
He came west.
He came for the graduate work in 1930. 39 or 40, and he stayed after the revolution and everything. And he was working for SOM, and I think he was my supervisor. What I have heard about, I haven't met him. It's 40 years.
Yeah, he was there when I was at school, but I never had him as a teacher. Mary Alice, have you got any funny stories like that?
Any funny story? No, I.
Probably have 6 dozen of them, but since we put you on the spot, they probably.
No, I don't. I wasn't that smart to have a funny story like that. If I think of one, I'll let you know.
Then you have to go back to your Toastmasters. You always have to tell a joke before the opening of your long speech or something.
Well, that happened to be the advice at this particular point in time. The idea is to get people's, it doesn't have to be a joke, something to get attention.
Relax.
And so,
Other than dropping your notes all over the...
well, that does it too.
Yeah, you don't have to practice that one.
Well, I'm going to need to go. My babysitter leaves in 20 minutes.
Okay.
2:46.
I have to be back to Mom.
Should probably do some work today, maybe.
Yeah. This has been really interesting and wonderful, and
Well, it's unique.
glad we could get together.
It's a start.
Right.
Just
But
a start.
same time next month.
Oh,
is that
where
it?
is the sheet that you all signed? I like to know the names of the people whom I know.
Oh, we need a sign-up sheet. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Well, we wrote our names down in your roster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nothing
You're
more.
not registered.
I am registered.
Oh, you are?
Yes, I've been registered, but
2000,
not
yeah?
since 1986. I'm not on the 86 roster.
I see. Oh,
2000 architects.
So now you-
have 2000 number.
now you are.
Let me check my number. Let me check.
Yeah, now you are.
Yeah. I wasn't in Oregon in
What number you
1986.
have? You read before.
My registration number? 881.
I know.
That's
I
not it.
have 1056.
And what number are you?
1056.
Oh, I got in
1056?
a great year.
Should have been 1066.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only number I can remember.
And I'm 2965.
29.
2965.
That's what I think.
What did I do with it?
So,
Almost 3,000.
well, I'm sure there are by now because this was 1989 that I did that.
Okay.
I have 1056. I suppose. Look up.
I don't know. But my
Yeah,
Tennessee
yeah, yeah.
license number, now that's another one. That was pretty funny. There aren't that
Okay,
many more in
yeah,
Tennessee.
Oh,
Okay. No, it's in there. I think you are 10 something.
1056.
No, there's 13,000 in Tennessee.
13,000? And there's only 3,000 here?
Yeah. Well, Tennessee's,
Well, they've had more years to.
This is true, but still, it seems.
yeah.
Although,
And there are more people in Tennessee than there are in Oregon.
are
The whole state is populated.
Yeah.
It's such a little
True.
state, though.
It's not little.
Is it
680 miles
Tennessee?
across. One end from Memphis
How about
to
south of
Virginia.
Oregon? Yeah, but it ain't square like Oregon.
Yeah, I know. But there isn't a big desert in the middle either.
What's
For
north
interview
and south?
with
How
Benny.
many? A couple hundred?
Benedetto.
Let's see, it takes 3
DA,
hours.
isn't
So that'd
it?
be
DAL.
580
180. Oh, it's on the other page.
probably.
You're on the